The great chamber was the largest room Captain Sarah Chen had ever seen. It stretched upward like the inside of a mountain, with seats carved into the walls in circles that went higher and higher until they disappeared into darkness. 312 alien species sat in those seats, watching her with eyes of every shape and color. Some had no eyes at all. Some had too many. Sarah stood alone on a small platform in the center of the chamber. Behind her, a hologram of Earth floated in the air. Her home looked so small, so blue, so fragile against the endless black of space. She was 42 years old. She had short black hair with a few strands of gray. Her face was calm, but her heart beat fast inside her chest. She had practiced this moment for months. She had memorized every word she would say. But now, standing before beings who had traveled the stars when humans still lived in caves, she felt very small. The Velthari sat in the highest seats. Their bodies were made of living crystal that glowed with soft light. They were the oldest species in the galaxy. They had built empires when Earth was still a ball of fire. Their leader, Senator Vexillar, looked down at Sarah like she was an insect that had crawled into his home. The Korath filled an entire section of the chamber. They were massive creatures with 6 arms and skin like stone. They had never lost a war in 40,000 years. They looked at Sarah with something close to amusement. What threat could this small, soft creature pose to anyone? The Sindari were harder to see. They existed partly in normal space and partly somewhere else. They could read minds and bend thoughts. When Sarah looked at them, she felt a cold pressure against her brain, like fingers trying to open a locked door. She pushed back against the feeling. The Sindari representative made a surprised sound. Not many species could resist their touch. "You may speak," Senator Vexillar said. His voice echoed through the chamber like breaking glass. Sarah took a breath. "Thank you, Senator. I am Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force. I come before this Senate to request membership for humanity in the galactic community." Whispers filled the chamber. Some of the aliens laughed. Others made sounds that might have been laughter in their own languages. Sarah continued. "We know we are young. We know we have much to learn. But humanity offers something valuable. We are adaptable. We are determined. We do not give up, even when we should. We believe we can contribute to this community." She talked for an hour. She showed them human art, human music, human science. She showed them images of humans helping each other after disasters. She showed them the best of what her species could be. When she finished, the chamber was silent. Senator Vexillar stood. The crystal of his body rang like a bell. "We have heard the humans' request. Now we shall vote. All in favor of granting humanity membership in the galactic community?" Sarah waited. Her hands were steady at her sides. Not a single vote was cast in favor. All opposed? 312 lights turned red. Every single species had voted against Earth. Sarah felt the weight of that rejection settle on her shoulders. 8 billion people had sent her here with hope. She would return with nothing. Senator Vexillar spoke again. And this time he did not hide his contempt. "The vote is complete. Humanity is denied membership. Furthermore, we declare humanity a quarantine species. You are forbidden from traveling beyond your star system. You are forbidden from trading with member worlds. You are forbidden from contact with the galactic community." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. "Your species is too young." The senator continued. "You have existed for less than a heartbeat of cosmic time. You are violent, primitive, dangerous to yourselves and others. Return in 10,000 years, when you have proven your worth." Sarah looked up at him. Her face showed nothing, but inside, something changed. A door closed. A fire started. "May I speak?" she asked. The senator waved a crystalline hand. "If you must." Sarah looked around the chamber slowly. She looked at every species. She memorized every face. She burned this moment into her memory. "I understand your decision," she said. Her voice was quiet but clear. "You see us as children, as primitives, playing with fire. Perhaps you are right." She paused. "But I want you to remember this moment. All of you. Remember that humanity came to you in peace. We asked for friendship. We asked for trade. We asked only for the chance to stand among you as equals." The chamber was very quiet now. "You have chosen to reject us, to cage us in our own system, to treat us as animals in a zoo." Sarah's voice did not rise, but it grew harder. "That is your right, but I want you to remember something else." She pointed at the hologram of Earth behind her. "That small blue world has faced extinction many times. Ice ages, asteroids, plagues, wars. Every time, people said humanity would die. Every time, we survived. Not because we were the strongest or the smartest, but because we refused to quit." Senator Vexelar made a dismissive sound. "Pretty words. From a primitive species." Sarah looked directly at him. "You will regret this vote, Senator. Not because we will make you regret it. We are not a species of revenge. But the galaxy is vast and dark, and there are things out there that even your ancient eyes have not seen." She took a step toward the exit. "When those things come, and they will come, you will wish you had not turned away the only species stubborn enough to fight them. You will wish you had not caged the humans." The chamber erupted in laughter. Hundreds of alien voices mocked her words. The Korath slapped their massive hands together in amusement. Even the cold Sindari seemed entertained. Sarah walked toward the exit. She did not look back. She did not respond to the laughter. A young Velthari aide blocked her path. "Do you truly believe your primitive species matters to the galaxy?" he asked with a sneer. Sarah looked at him. Her dark eyes were calm and cold. "Not yet," she said. "But we will." She walked out of the chamber and into the corridor beyond. The doors closed behind her, cutting off the sound of laughter. Sarah stood alone in the silence. She allowed herself one moment of pain, one moment of grief, for the hope she had carried into that room. Then, she straightened her spine and lifted her chin. She had a message to deliver to Earth. And after that, there was work to do. The galaxy had rejected humanity. Very well. Humanity would build its own future. And when the darkness came, as Sarah knew it would, they would be ready. She walked toward her ship, and she did not look back. 15 years passed, like fire, through dry grass. Sarah Chen returned to Earth with the Senate's rejection. She stood before the United Earth Council and told them everything. She told them about the laughter. She told them about the cage the galaxy had built around their star system. She told them that humanity had been declared primitive and unworthy. The council members sat in shocked silence. Some looked defeated. Some looked angry. A few looked afraid. Sarah looked at none of these. She looked at the ones whose eyes held the same fire she felt in her own heart. There were not many, but they were enough. "They have given us 10,000 years to prove ourselves," she said. "I say we do it in 15. The council voted that night. Sarah Chen was promoted to Commodore and given command of a new project. They called it Prometheus, after the old myth of the being who stole fire from the gods and gave it to humanity. The first 5 years were the hardest. Earth had no alien technology. The Senate had made sure of that. Every probe that entered the Sol system was shot down. Every signal was blocked. Humanity was truly alone. But humans were very good at making something from nothing. Sarah worked 18 hours a day. She slept in her office. She ate meals while reading reports. She pushed her engineers and scientists harder than they had ever been pushed before. And when they complained, she reminded them of the laughter in the Senate chamber. No one complained after that. By the end of the 5th year, they had built their first new warship. It was ugly compared to alien vessels. It had no graceful curves or glowing crystals. It was a block of metal and weapons, built for one purpose only. Sarah stood on the bridge of that first ship and felt something she had not felt since leaving the Senate chamber. She felt hope. What shall we call her? Her second-in-command asked. Sarah thought of the Senate. She thought of the cage. She thought of every being who had laughed at humanity's request for friendship. Defiance, she said. Her name is Defiance. The next 10 years moved faster. Sarah was promoted again and again. Commodore became Rear Admiral. Rear Admiral became Vice Admiral. Vice Admiral became Admiral. Each promotion came with more ships, more people, more responsibility. By the 10th year, they had a fleet of 50 ships. By the 15th year, they had 300. Admiral Sarah Chen was 57 years old now. Her hair was more silver than black. Lines marked her face like rivers on a map. But her eyes still burned with the same fire from that day in the Senate chamber. She walked the corridors of the Defiance every day. She knew every section, every system, every crew member. The ship had been rebuilt twice, as human technology improved, but it was still her ship, still the symbol of what humanity could do when the galaxy told them they could not. The crew loved her, not because she was kind, though she could be. Not because she was soft, because she was not. They loved her because she treated them as what they were. Warriors, preparing for a war that everyone else thought was impossible. Admiral, her tactical officer said one morning, "We have detected something at the edge of the system." Sarah looked at the screen. A small object drifted in the darkness, caught by the sun's gravity. "Is it one of their probes?" she asked. "No, Admiral. It is something else. Something damaged. We think it might be an escape pod." Sarah made a decision in less than a second. "Bring it in. Carefully. 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. The escape pod held 2 beings. They were Sindari, the mind readers from the Senate. They were barely alive, their bodies torn and broken. Sarah stood over them in the medical bay. Part of her wanted to throw them back into space. The Sindari had voted against Earth like all the others. They had laughed at her. But another part of her, the part that made her human, saw only 2 dying creatures who needed help. "Save them," she ordered the doctors. "Do whatever it takes." The Sindari survived. When they woke, they were confused and afraid. They expected torture, imprisonment, death. Instead, they found Admiral Chen sitting beside their beds, waiting. "Why did you save us?" one of them asked. Its mental voice was weak and filled with pain. "Because we are not what you think we are," Sarah said. "We never were." The Sindari told her things that changed everything. They spoke of rumors from beyond the galaxy's edge, stories of a great darkness that moved between the stars, consuming everything it touched. The Sindari had been investigating these rumors when their ship was attacked. "It is coming," the Sindari whispered. "We do not know when, but it is coming. And when it arrives, nothing will stop it. Not the Velthari, not the Korath, not anyone." Sarah listened to every word. When the Sindari finished, she asked one question. "Can it be fought?" The Sindari looked at her with something new in their strange eyes. It might have been respect. "We do not know," they admitted. "No one has ever tried." Sarah smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of a wolf seeing prey. "Then we will be the first." She returned the Sindari to the galaxy's edge with supplies and a message for the Senate. The message was simple. "When the darkness comes, call us." The Senate ignored the message. They thought it was a trick, a desperate attempt by the primitive humans to escape their cage. Sarah did not care. She had not sent the message because she expected help. She had sent it because when the time came, she wanted the galaxy to remember that humanity had tried to warn them. 300 ships became 500. 500 became 800. Human engineers developed weapons that the Senate had banned as too brutal. Nuclear missiles, kinetic impactors, weapons that did not care about elegance, only destruction. On the 15th anniversary of the Senate vote, Admiral Sarah Chen addressed her entire fleet. "They called us primitive," she said, her voice carried to every ship. "They caged us. They laughed at us. They told us to return in 10,000 years." She paused. 15 years. That is how long it took humanity to build the most powerful fleet in our history. 15 years of being told we were nothing. 15 years of proving them wrong. And 15 years. 800 ships waited in formation around her. The darkness is coming. The galaxy will burn. And when the Senate finally calls for help, we will answer. Not for revenge, not for glory, but because that is who we are. She looked out at the stars beyond her viewport. We are human, and we do not abandon anyone, not even those who abandoned us. 2 weeks later, the first reports of the Vethkai arrived. The darkness had come, and humanity was ready. The Vethkai came from the space between galaxies, from the endless void where no star had ever shone. They were not like any species the galaxy had ever seen. They were not made of flesh or crystal or energy. They were made of hunger. Each Vethkai creature was a nightmare of metal and flesh twisted together. They had no eyes, but they could see. They had no mouths, but they could eat. They moved through space like a swarm of insects. Millions of them, traveling together in clouds, so thick they blocked out the stars. They did not want territory. They did not want resources. They did not want slaves, or treaties, or trade. They wanted silence, complete, perfect silence, and they would kill everything in the universe to get it. The Korath were the first to fall. For 40,000 years, the Korath had been the greatest warriors in the galaxy. They had never lost a war. Their fleets were legendary. Their soldiers were fearless. The Korath war fleet met the Vethkai at the edge of their territory. 3,000 warships, each one capable of destroying a planet, formed a wall of steel and fire. The battle lasted 6 days. When it was over, there were no Korath ships left. Not one survivor. Not one distress signal. Just empty space, and the Vethkai swarm moving forward. News of the defeat spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Species that had felt safe for millennia suddenly felt very afraid. If the Korath could be destroyed, anyone could be destroyed. The Velthari sent their crystalline armada next. They were the oldest species, the most advanced, the most powerful. Their ships had fought wars when most species still lived in oceans. The Velthari armada shattered like glass thrown against stone. The Vethkai did not even slow down. The Sindari tried something different. They reached out with their minds, trying to touch the thoughts of the Vethkai, trying to understand them, control them, or at least communicate with them. Every Sindari who touched a Vethkai mind went insane. The screaming inside those creatures was too much for any living mind to handle. Thousands of Sindari telepaths died, their brains destroyed from the inside out. 1 month after the first attack, 12 species had been completely destroyed. Their worlds were empty. Their people were gone. Not killed exactly, but absorbed, consumed, made part of the Vethkai swarm. The Galactic Senate met in emergency session. The great chamber that had once held 312 species now held less than 300. Empty seats stared down like the eyes of ghosts. Senator Vexillar stood at the center of the chamber. His crystalline body was cracked and dull. He had lost most of his family in the Velthari armada. He had lost half of his species. The contempt that had once filled his voice was gone, replaced by fear. "We must do something," he said. "We must find allies. We must find weapons. We must find hope." Quote, a young Velthari aide spoke up. "Senator, there is one species we have not contacted. The humans." The chamber fell silent. Many of the beings there remembered the day they had laughed at Captain Sarah Chen. They remembered her warning about the darkness that would come. They remembered calling her primitive. "The humans are quarantined," another senator said. They are forbidden from contact. The humans were right, the aide replied. They warned us. 15 years ago, they stood in this very chamber and told us that something was coming. We laughed at them. Senator Vexillar closed his eyes. In his mind, he could see the human captain walking out of the chamber. He could hear her quiet voice, saying words that had seemed foolish then and seemed prophetic now. Contact them, he said. Beg them if you must. Tell them we were wrong. Tell them we need their help. The message was sent to the Sol system. It crossed the vast distance of space and arrived at the Defiance, where Admiral Sarah Chen sat in her command chair, reading reports of the Vethkai advance. Her communications officer turned to her. Admiral, we have received a transmission from the Galactic Senate. Sarah did not react. Her face remained calm and cold. Play it. Senator Vexillar's voice filled the bridge. It was nothing like the voice that had rejected humanity 15 years ago. There was no contempt now. Only desperation. Admiral Chen, on behalf of the Galactic Senate, I must tell you that you were right. We were wrong. A great darkness has fallen upon the galaxy, and we cannot stop it. 12 species have been destroyed. More will follow. A pause. We ask for your help. We beg for your help. Please, Admiral, save us from the thing we refuse to believe existed. The message ended. The bridge was silent. Sarah sat very still. She thought of the laughter in the Senate chamber. She thought of 15 years of isolation, of being treated like animals in a cage. She thought of every insult, every rejection, every moment of pain. Then she thought of the 12 species that had been destroyed. She thought of children who would never grow up. She thought of worlds that would never see another sunrise. She stood. Set course for the outer rim, she ordered. All ships, battle formation. We are going to war. Her tactical officer looked at her. Admiral. With respect, they rejected us. They caged us. They laughed at us. Why should we save them? Sarah looked at the stars on her view screen. Somewhere out there, the Vethkai were consuming everything in their path. Somewhere out there, species were dying by the billions. Because we are human, she said simply. We do not let others die because they hurt our feelings. We do not watch the galaxy burn because we are angry. She turned to face her crew. They were wrong about us. They called us primitive and violent. But today, we prove them wrong. Today, we show the galaxy what humanity really is. She opened a channel to the entire fleet. 800 ships, each one crewed by men and women who had spent 15 years preparing for this moment. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. The galaxy did not want us. They rejected us and caged us and told us we were worthless. And now, the galaxy is dying. She paused. We could stay here. We could watch from a distance as the Vethkai consume everything. No one would blame us. But that is not who we are. 800 crews listened in silence. We are going to fight. We are going to bleed. Some of us will die. But when the history of this galaxy is written, it will say that when the darkness came, humanity answered. Not for revenge, not for glory. The fleet began to move, 800 ships burning toward the stars. Let's go save the galaxy, Admiral Chen said, whether they deserve it or not. The human fleet arrived at Nexus Prime to find hell. The capital of the Galactic Senate was burning. The great space stations that had orbited the planet for 1,000,000 years were broken and falling. Ships of every species drifted in pieces, their crews dead or dying, and through it all, the Vethkai swarm moved like a disease, consuming everything it touched. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Defiance and watched the destruction. Her face showed nothing, but inside her heart, something cold and hard settled into place. How many enemy contacts? She asked. Her tactical officer studied his screens. Millions, Admiral. The swarm is endless. And how many survivors? We are detecting distress signals from multiple Senate vessels. They are clustered near the planet. Trying to defend the civilian evacuation. Sarah nodded. Then that is where we go. All ships. Attack formation. Target the largest swarm clusters first. We need to create a path to those survivors. The human fleet moved forward. 800 ships in perfect formation. Their ugly metal hulls a stark contrast to the elegant wreckage around them. The Vethkai noticed them. The swarm turned. Millions of creatures changing direction like a single organism. They had consumed a dozen species. They had destroyed the greatest warriors in the galaxy. What could these primitive humans possibly do? They were about to find out. Fire, Admiral Chen said. 800 ships unleashed their weapons at the same moment. But these were not the elegant energy beams of the Velthari or the bioorganic missiles of the Korath. These were nuclear warheads, kinetic impactors. Weapons that the Senate had banned as barbaric and uncivilized. The first wave of Vethkai dissolved in atomic fire. Thousands of creatures vanished in an instant, their biomechanical bodies torn apart by forces they had never faced before. The swarm hesitated. For the first time since they had entered the galaxy, they had encountered something that could hurt them. They are regrouping, the tactical officer reported. Coming around for another attack. Good, Sarah said. Let them come. Fire all batteries. Do not stop until your weapons are empty. Then reload and fire again. The battle became chaos. Vethkai creatures slammed into human ships, tearing at their hulls with claws made of metal and hate. Human guns blazed in response, filling space with explosions and death. Ships on both sides died, by the hundreds. But the humans did not run. They did not retreat. They held their ground and fought with a fury that shocked even the Vethkai. The Defiance was in the center of the fight. The flagship took hit after hit, its armor buckling, its systems failing. But Sarah refused to pull back. Admiral, we have lost 40% of the fleet, her first officer reported. His voice was calm, but his face was pale. The Defiance has taken critical damage. We need to withdraw. Sarah shook her head. Look at the planet, through the view screen, past the swarm and the fire. They could see dozens of transport ships lifting off from Nexus Prime. Each one carried thousands of civilians, children, families, beings who had never held a weapon in their lives. They are still evacuating, Sarah said. If we withdraw, the swarm will reach those transports. Millions will die. If we stay, we will all die. Sarah smiled. It was a tired smile, the smile of someone who had accepted what was coming. Then we die. But we die protecting the innocent. That is a good death. She opened a channel to the fleet. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. I know you are tired. I know you are afraid. I know we have lost good people today. But look at what we have done. Look at what we are doing. The swarm was thinning. Human weapons were working. The barbaric, primitive, uncivilized nuclear warheads were tearing the Vethkai apart faster than they could adapt. They banned these weapons, Sarah continued. They called them too brutal for civilized warfare. They thought elegance and tradition were more important than survival. They were wrong. A massive Vethkai creature, larger than a battleship, moved toward the Defiance. Its body was covered with the remains of ships it had absorbed. Sarah could see pieces of Korath vessels, Velthari crystals, Sindari technology, all twisted together into something terrible. That is the hive node, her tactical officer said. The central intelligence of this swarm cluster. If we destroy it, the swarm will lose coordination. Distance to target? Too far for our weapons. We would need to get much closer. Sarah looked at the hive node. She looked at the evacuation transports behind her. She made a decision. All power to engines, she ordered. Set collision course. Her crew stared at her. We are going to ram it, Sarah said calmly. The Defiance is dying anyway. Let us make her death mean something. The ship turned and accelerated toward the hive node. Vethkai creatures threw themselves against the hull, but the defiance did not stop. It was a dying beast. Making one final charge, Sarah stood at the view screen, watching the hive node grow larger. She thought of Earth. She thought of the people she had left behind. She thought of the Senate chamber where this had all begun. "It has been an honor," she said to her crew. Then the universe exploded. Not the defiance, but the space around the hive node. From nowhere, from everywhere, new ships appeared. Human ships. The secret fleet that Earth had been building for 15 years. 300 fresh warships, their weapons fully loaded, their crews ready for war. They had been waiting, hiding in the darkness between systems, waiting for the right moment. The moment was now. The reinforcement fleet unleashed everything they had at the hive node. Nuclear fire, kinetic rounds, missiles of every size. The hive node screamed, a sound that had no voice but somehow filled every mind in the system. And then it died. The swarm shattered. Without the hive node, the Vethkai became confused, disorganized. They turned on each other, attacking without purpose. The human fleet tore them apart. For the first time in their existence, the Vethkai retreated. They fled toward the void between galaxies, leaving behind the burning remains of their swarm. Admiral Sarah Chen sat in her command chair, bleeding from a cut on her head. The Defiance was barely holding together. Half her crew was dead or wounded. But through the view screen, she could see the last evacuation transports reaching safety. "Get me a channel to the Senate," she said. A moment later, she was looking at the face of Senator Vexillar. The crystalline being was staring at her with something she had never seen in his eyes before. Awe, respect, and something that might have been shame. "Admiral Chen," he said. "You saved us." Sarah wiped blood from her eye. "Send medical ships for the survivors. Send repair vessels for what is left of my fleet." "And, Senator?" "Yes, Admiral? The vote has been reconsidered. Humanity is no longer asking for membership. We are taking our place. Whether the Senate agrees or not." She cut the channel before he could respond. Around her, the remaining human ships gathered. They were battered and broken. But they had won. They had done what no other species had done. They had made the darkness afraid. 2 years passed after the Battle of Nexus Prime. The Vethkai were not destroyed. They had retreated to the void between galaxies, licking their wounds, learning from their defeat. Everyone knew they would return someday. But for now, the galaxy had time to breathe, time to rebuild, time to remember. Admiral Sarah Chen spent those 2 years doing what she did best. She trained new crews. She built new ships. She prepared humanity for the war that was still to come. Her hair was completely silver now, and new lines marked her face. But her eyes still burned with the same fire that had carried her through 15 years of isolation and the worst battle the galaxy had ever seen. When the Senate requested her presence on Nexus Prime, she almost refused. She had no interest in their politics, their apologies, their attempts to make peace with the species they had rejected so long ago. But her advisors convinced her to go. The galaxy was watching. What happened in that chamber would shape the future of human relations with every other species. So Admiral Sarah Chen put on her dress uniform for the second time in her life and returned to the place where everything had begun. The grand chamber had been rebuilt. The seats rose up in circles toward the darkness above, just as they had 17 years ago. But so much had changed. Half the seats were empty, belonging to species that no longer existed. The Korath section was nearly vacant. The Velthari numbers had dropped by more than half. And in the center of the chamber, where Sarah had once stood alone asking for friendship, there was now a new section of seats. Human seats. Empty. Waiting. Sarah walked down the long aisle toward the central platform. Every eye in the chamber followed her. She could feel their stares. Some were filled with gratitude. Some were filled with fear. A few, she noticed, still held the old contempt, the old belief that humans were beneath them. She did not care about any of them. Senator Vexillar stood at the main podium. His crystalline body had been repaired, but cracks still showed beneath the surface. He would carry those scars forever, a permanent reminder of how close his species had come to extinction. "Admiral Chen," he said. His voice no longer echoed with superiority. It was quiet, almost humble. "Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming." Sarah nodded but did not speak. The senator continued. 17 years ago, you stood in this chamber and asked for humanity to join the galactic community. We refused. We called you primitive. We called you violent. We called you unworthy." He paused. "We were fools." A murmur ran through the chamber. No Velthari had ever admitted to being wrong, not in a million years of recorded history. "You warned us that darkness was coming. We laughed at you. You offered friendship. We gave you a cage." Vexillar's voice cracked like breaking glass. "And when the darkness finally came, when everything we had built was falling apart, you came to save us anyway." He stepped down from the podium and walked toward Sarah. The senator stopped in front of her. He was taller than her by more than a foot, his crystalline form towering over her human body. But somehow, in that moment, she seemed like the larger one. "Admiral Chen, on behalf of the Galactic Senate, on behalf of every species that survives because of human sacrifice, I offer you our deepest apology." He bowed his head. "And I offer humanity full membership in the galactic community, a permanent seat on the Security Council, and command authority over all combined fleet operations." The chamber was completely silent. This was more than anyone had expected. This was the Senate admitting not just that they were wrong, but that humanity was now their leader. Sarah stood still for a long moment. She thought of the crew members who had died at Nexus Prime. She thought of the ships that would never return home. She thought of all the pain and sacrifice that had brought her to this moment. Then she spoke. "Forgiveness," she said slowly, "is not mine to give." Vexillar looked up, confusion in his ancient eyes. 8 billion humans were told they were not worthy of the stars. Sarah continued. 15 years of isolation. 15 years of being treated as animals. Do you think I can forgive that, on their behalf? The senator seemed to shrink. "I cannot," Sarah said. "That is not my right. Only the people of Earth can decide if they forgive you. Only the children who grew up knowing the galaxy hated them can choose to let go of that pain." She took a step forward. "But I can tell you this. Humanity did not come to Nexus Prime for forgiveness. We did not fight the Vethkai because we wanted your approval. We did not sacrifice 300 ships and 50,000 lives because we expected gratitude." Her voice filled the chamber. "We came because it was right. We fought because innocents were dying. We sacrificed because that is what humans do. Not for reward, not for recognition, but because we cannot stand by and watch others suffer, even others who have treated us as less than nothing." She turned to face the entire Senate. "You do not get our forgiveness. You have not earned it. What you get is our protection. We will guard this galaxy against the Vethkai and anything else that threatens it. We will train your fleets and share our weapons and stand beside you when the darkness returns." Her eyes swept across the chamber, cold and hard. "Not because you deserve it, but because that is who we are." The silence stretched on. No one knew what to say. Sarah turned back to Vexillar. "One more thing, Senator. The next time this galaxy decides to vote on whether a species is worthy, I want you to remember something." "What is that, Admiral?" "Remember what happened when you voted against Earth. Remember the laughter in this chamber. Remember the cage you built around our star. And then remember who came to save you when your ancient empires burned." She walked toward the exit, just as she had 17 years ago. But this time, no one laughed. "The human seats," Vex Aller called after her. "Will you take them?" Sarah stopped at the door. She did not turn around. "We will take them," she said. "Not because we need your permission, but because someone needs to be there when the Vethkai return. Someone needs to lead. Someone needs to remind this galaxy what courage looks like. She looked over her shoulder. We will be that someone. We always have been. Admiral Sarah Chen walked out of the grand chamber of the Galactic Senate. Behind her, 300 species sat in stunned silence. Before her, the stars waited. The darkness would return. Everyone knew it. But when it came, humanity would be ready. Not because they were the strongest, or the smartest, or the oldest. Because they were the most stubborn. Because they never quit. Because they were human. In the centuries that followed, a statue was built in the grand chamber. It showed a human woman in a military uniform, standing alone against an ocean of darkness. At its base, words were carved in 300 languages. She warned us. We did not listen. We will never forget. Admiral Sarah Chen did not live to see the statue. She died in battle during the Second HFY War, leading the combined galactic fleet against the darkness one final time. She was 93 years old, but her legacy lived forever, and the galaxy never voted against humanity again.